If data management is slowing down your business, you need the Intuit ERP. If one entity is here, and one here, and one here, and one here, you need the Intuit ERP. If scaling your business feels like starting over, you need the Intuit ERP. Intuit Enterprise Suite is the AI-native ERP solution that consolidates, migrates, and automates, all in one place. Learn more at intuit.com/ERP.
It's me, Donald Trump. You might remember me from such campaign promises as lower gas prices and no more wars. Psych! We love to make promises because a promise is just a lie that hasn't happened yet. But now it has, and gas costs like $1 billion a gallon, which are very high because of war with Iran, which is where they make gas. I wish someone had told me that. Kidding. But possibly not.
Quiet Riot.
Hello and welcome to Quiet Riot Sunday School, the weekend comfy tracksuit to Thursday's tailored pantsuit.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
I'm Alex Andreou.
And I'm Kenny Campbell.
How are you, Kenny?
I'm enjoying the spring. It's the best time of the year, isn't it? Everything difficult and challenging, hopefully, is out of the way. That sort of long run that you have where the clocks change and then the first gales and the first floods and all that stuff. And then all of a sudden, crocuses and daffodils pop their heads up. Here in the south where I am, the flowers are all out. The trees are getting their act together. And all the good stuff is ahead of us.
It's bright and lovely, and it's my favorite time of year in London as well, because there's so much green space in London, and green space that's looked after. And one of the easiest ways of looking after green space is to plant loads of bulbs. So all the parks just explode with colour, and it's really, really gorgeous.
Have you got bulbs in your little garden?
Yeah, of course I do. Yeah, I do bulb lasagna. I think we discussed it before, where I put layers of them and they burst through each other, so you get a continuous display.
Yeah.
They're
bouquet.
gorgeous. And now the tulips and the muscari are beginning to come up.
Have the first weeds appeared?
I've never seen nettles so big in my entire life. I had to do a lot of weeding. Obviously, something in the weather agreed with them.
Nettles, they make excellent crisps. I know people make tea out of it.
True.
You can shallow fry nettles and a little bit of salt, and they're delicious.
I'm doing loads of experiments with a garden this year. And if listeners want to ask me anything gardening related, there's an Ask Us Anything coming up on the 29th of March, which is a week from today. So next Sunday at 5 p.m. As you know, we like to change the day and time to accommodate as many people coming to these as possible. And you can still sign up as a monthly supporter in order to get an invite to that event by going to ko-fi.com/quietriotpod. And if you do so now, then in the middle of next week, you will get an invite to that Sunday live Ask Us Anything. And you can really ask us anything, but I would particularly encourage you to make this a Gardener's World special. Because as I said, my mind is very much there at the moment.
Okay, well, let's go and look at what's in the seed packets for this week's episode, first of all, shall we?
Yeah.
Look, as much as I would very, very, very much like to not hear Trump's name ever again, we really do have to cover the latest developments in his great Middle Eastern escapade.
I think that's fair enough. There's been so many developments. It's actually quite difficult to keep up. And then we can stay far away from America for topic 2, because interrelated as it is, there are elections happening in Europe. And there's 2 coming up in short order in Denmark and Hungary, which I think deserves a moment in the Quiet Riot spotlight because they're quite important elections.
Good call. And to round things off, let's take a deep breath and look at the wit and wisdom, well, actually the shit and wisdom of Nigel Farage in light of the tragic news that he's pausing his personalised video service after getting caught appearing to support Canadian neo-Nazis and commenting on a congresswoman's breasts, as you do. We're not dealing with Churchill here, as some other arsehole might have said.
Neo-Nazis and boobs, what's not to love? Let's get this show on the road.
Quiet Riot.
And just like that, Shortly after Saturday's Telegraph announced that Trump is ready to put boots on the ground in Iran, it looks like the US president is looking instead for the exit sign on the whole war. He is declaring a great victory, claiming the US has done its bit, and it's now up to other countries, which depend more actively on the Strait of Hormuz, to take over its defense. Those countries include Japan, whose new PM, Sanae Takaishi, visited the White House a couple of days ago. This is how that went.
Why didn't you tell US allies like Japan about the war before attacking Iran?
When we go in, we went in very hard, and we didn't tell anybody about it because we wanted surprise. Who knows better about surprise than Japan? Okay? Why didn't you tell me about Pearl Harbor? Okay? Right? You know, he's asking me, no, you believe in surprise, I think much more so than us.
Plot twist, it emerged today that Japan is already in talks with Iran, which appears very willing to allow Japanese ships through the strait, according to its foreign minister Toshimitsu Motegi. Relations between the White House and Downing Street, meanwhile, appear to be on the way to the repair shop too. Starmer has agreed that the UK will participate in defending Hormuz. The UK side is saying this is simply an extension of the defensive role it is already taking. Trump sees this as finally, although he is surprised how long it took, the UK is on side. Kemi Badenoch, by extension, also thinks that. These days she seems to be like one of those accounts on X that simply reposts everything that Trump account posts on Truth Social. More important than all this, I suspect, was Israel's attack on South Pars, which is part of the world's largest natural gas field, for which Tehran retaliated by striking a big energy complex in Qatar. The attacks led to a huge spike in energy prices and made Trump reportedly very angry. Israel says the attacks were a joint operation with the US. Trump insists he had absolutely no idea. Terrifyingly, both might be true. Remarkably, on Saturday, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent announced a 30-day pause in sanctions on Iranian oil. So, Kenny, I could call those mixed signals, but that wouldn't quite capture it, would it?
A political lasagna.
What is going on?
The United States is desperately trying to pull back from Iran. You know, I think we can all see that, presumably for a whole bunch of reasons, not least of which is that Trump tends to lose interest in shiny things very quickly. But he's doing the classic maneuver. He's escalated loudly. He's declared success early, however you measure success. And then he's lost interest and is encouraging everyone else to clean up the mess. What I particularly like from a comms perspective, as to how like is quite a strong word, but you know what I mean, is that Trump is now reframing this attempted withdrawal as leadership, which I think is bold even by his standards. It begs the question, what exactly is the victory here? Can this really be seen as anything other than a bit of an abject humiliation from America?
You'd struggle, right? Iran has a new supreme leader. The previous one was in his late 80s, so it's not like that wasn't going to happen at some point anyway. Iran has proved that it can hold the world hostage with just a few mortar launches near Hormuz. It has exposed total disunity in the West and NATO in particular, a total lack of strategic thinking on the US side. It has advantaged Russia by making crude oil both more expensive and easing sanctions on countries that need to buy from that direction while this is going on. So it is really, really hard to find a single upside to this, especially if you take the pronouncements from the previous bout of bombing at face value that it had degenerated Iran's nuclear capability or facility to at least refine uranium, and that they would be years away from restarting any such activity, which was the US intelligence's opinion before this latest round of strikes. So I don't know what the idea was. I don't know why people thought this would be an easy in and out like it was with Venezuela. It was clearly never going to be the case.
We've long known that there's a flavor of chaos around the whole issue, you know, in terms of what victory might look like. It's been well recorded, Trump's various reasons for launching the war. They've ranged from regime change to destroy nuclear facilities. And my own favourite, vibes. He did it because he had a feeling. And why wouldn't you go into war? Because of vibes, baby. Of course, what that does mean is that in Trump's own world, he's got dealer's choice when it comes to deciding what victory here means, isn't he? You know, he can pick and choose whatever he wants.
Of course, the one background reason that remains and has always been in place, and is by this point the only thing that makes any sense, is that it really was in order to divert attention away from the release of the Epstein files, who have continued to emerge in the background and have continued to include incredibly damaging revelations about Trump. Has he managed to do that? Or will the press basically turn to that as soon as this episode is over, meaning that Trump then needs to start firing rockets at Cuba?
I mean, he's very consistent in his inconsistency. So we know that this regime continually creates chaos. The Steve Bannon model we've mentioned many times. We know that there's a great urge to create additional chaos because of the Epstein files. And we also know, really importantly, that tackle applies. Every damn time there's a big decision, Trump always chickens out. It's what's happened in Iran as well. He chickens out and he calls it a win as he's running out of the room. But he's going to find somewhere else to run into, isn't he? That's the depressing reality of the situation that we have here at the moment.
I mean, yes, the problem for him, I think, is that every time this happens, some prominent MAGA ambassadors, influencers, YouTubers, podcasters, you know, people in that environment become quite ticked off. Because to us, Trump might have always seemed a ludicrous figure, but they believed when he said it will be America first and we won't be involved in laser foreign wars, etc. And so to them, this strikes really at the root of why they thought Trump would be the savior. And so close to the midterm elections, I'm not sure this makes a massive difference in terms of turning some of that support into Democrat support. I don't think it does. But as we have seen, what happens first is a kind of demotivation of your base. They'll just stay home and sit on their hands because they will be resigned to the nation that actually they are all the same, including Trump.
Yeah, and they don't like to back losers. I saw a cracking set of Vox Pops earlier this week.
I'm in Millersburg, Pennsylvania. The reason I'm here is it's a swing district in a swing state. President Trump won this district by about 5 points, but the local congressman, Scott Perry, is in danger of losing in the midterms. Kelly, most of the people we talked to were supportive of the war, but not everybody felt that way. If you could say something to President Trump and he was going to hear you right now, what would it be?
You're a worthless pile of
And you voted for him how many times?
3 times. That was my bad. Apparently, I'm an idiot.
So at the margins, there are people who have got not just apathy or they're a bit bemused. There's genuine rage there.
The pattern with Trump has been that someone has carried the can when things have gone wrong, right?
Exactly what I'm looking forward to, because when things go wrong, somebody will be thrown under the bus. So who do we think is going to carry the can? Has Hegseth done enough? He's been out there batting hard and crazy for this war, hasn't he?
Well, he has to.
Yeah, he does have to.
You know, he's the Secretary of War. He's kind of heading this entire thing. Let's have a little listen to what he said the other day, because I think it's just so funny.
The United States is decimating the radical Iranian regime's military in a way the world has never seen before. Never before has a modern, capable military, which Iran used to have, been so quickly destroyed and made combat ineffective, devastated. And as the world is seeing, they are exercising sheer desperation in the Straits of Hormuz. Something we're dealing with, we have been dealing with it, and don't need to worry about it.
The guy is genuinely some sort of burnt out frat boy, just has nothing up there. But he's immensely popular with MAGA.
Yes.
He's like the second popular person in this administration behind Trump. Tulsi Gabbard is having a very difficult time at the moment with Congress. She's tangentially, I guess, involved. They could just blame it on bad intelligence, especially after Joe Kent resigned, which we covered in the midweek episode. They could just say, we were pushed into this war by dud intelligence, and basically do a big clear out on that side of things.
That's right.
but it feels like it's got to be Pete Hegseth. Like, if you're going to do some bloodletting on this, it has to be Pete Hegseth. And I think you can see that. There was this very tight team of 5 that kept meeting, consisted of Kash Patel, Marco Rubio, J.D. Vance, Pete Hegseth, and the Attorney General, Pam Bondi. Okay, Pam Bondi has had her own difficulties. Pete Hegseth is leading this thing. But the other 3, it's been notable how hands-off they've been. Marco Rubio is in a foreign secretary position, right? That's what the State Department is. And he's almost said nothing about this. J.D. Vance will only do a sort of dead bat defense if asked by journalists. Kash Patel has disappeared. It really is notable how people have dived for cover as if they are expecting some kind of internal scapegoating to go on at any moment.
I share your fascination with this. Rubio is a man who always looks like he's just been sent to the headmaster's office and it's not gone well at all. But Vance as an operator clearly has his eye on the big job. But the relationship between Vance and Trump is certainly going to come under the spotlight in the days and weeks ahead, because Trump has a habit of seeing disloyalty where none exists. So where disloyalty actually might exist, which is the case with Vance's unwillingness to cheer for what's going on, I find it difficult to imagine that there isn't going to be fallout at some stage.
And yet, he's the only person really that is a problem for Trump, because he's not there at his pleasure. He's elected effectively as part of a joint ticket.
That's right.
And so the process of removing them is very similar to the process of impeachment. It needs proceedings, basically, in the House of Representatives and the Senate to impeach and remove the vice president. And so it's not straightforward by any stretch. I mean, J.D. Vance would in many ways be the obvious one to get rid of, because he's not on message on this and he's not particularly popular. And he's the one that's hardest to remove.
Quiet, riot. You didn't start a business just to keep the lights on. You're here to sell more today than yesterday. You're here to win. Lucky for you, Shopify built the best converting checkout on the planet. Like the just one tapping, ridiculously fast acting, sky-high sales stacking, champion of checkouts. That's the good stuff right there. So if your business is in it to win it, win with Shopify. Start your free trial today at shopify.com/win.
Quiet, riot. That's the perspective from the American side. On this side of the Atlantic, where do you think this leaves the UK?
I mean, the UK is where it has been throughout all this. It's trying to find the point at which it can do as little as possible while still maintaining a semblance of special relationship, as it were, and using that to make sure that things don't get worse for Ukraine. I think that's the big picture of what's going on here. The UK is trying to find the sweet spot where it makes itself just useful enough to the US to not escalate the degradation of the relationship any further. And weirdly, actually, Trump's rhetoric reflects that. His obvious hurt that the UK didn't just jump in with him does imply that he did expect the UK to jump right in with him, and may have been actually his first sign that, maybe Bibi Netanyahu got me involved in the wrong thing here, which is undoubtedly what happened behind the scenes, and undoubtedly what's going on now with this further bombing that makes things again even more difficult for the global economy, because it's attacking oil and gas infrastructure, which is the one bit that Trump said he didn't want to touch going in, because it's the one bit that matters to him. Ultimately, he just wants the regime replaced with a different regime. He doesn't care if it's diplomatic or not, theocratic or not, oppressive or not. He just wants this regime to be replaced with another one that gives him loads of cheap oil.
And dollar. Yeah. I mean, I absolutely agree. I mean, where Britain is, it's become Britain's natural habitat of late, isn't it? Awkwardly translating American chaos into some sort of British nuance. Desperately trying not to really choose a side. It's more about choosing not to fall out with either of two versions of reality. Because, I mean, there's very little to suggest that the public in general is anything other than aghast at what Trump has done. Even those who back regime change concede that bombing children, pouring petrol on the global economy isn't necessarily the right method to employ.
Part of the problem is that voters as a bloc, they are perfectly capable of disliking both outcomes of something which only has two outcomes. And so the fact that the public is incredibly uncomfortable with Trump and definitely thinks the UK did the right thing by not getting involved in the war doesn't mean that then would not be furious with Starmer if the relationship with the US deteriorated in a way that we could no longer consider them our allies.
That's very difficult. But there's also this idea that I come back to again and again when I'm discussing our transatlantic relations. And that's the idea that it would be a wonderful thing if Starmer, or indeed any other politicians, was able to create a division between the idea of aligning with the US and aligning with Trump. They are two very different things. Trumpworld does not map identically onto the US. And in the background, businesses in the US and businesses in the UK still do work with each other, despite what the Trump world does. Diplomats in the US, diplomats in the UK still do work in the background, despite what Trump world does.
And I think that's true. And you see it a little bit because there have been various bilateral agreements with big states, for instance, in terms of business. The problem is that when it comes to foreign policy, and especially security and matters of war, the president in the US really has absolute power. When the issue was tariffs, maybe you could make that distinction. When the issue was Greenland, we saw Starmer making that distinction. When the issue is we're at war over there, will you support us or not, then Trump is the US.
And I suppose one final question, is there a bigger picture here?
I mean, obviously there is a bigger picture here because there will be life after Trump.
One hopes.
We will all have to deal with the consequences of what he's done, both practically and in terms of repairing relationships and rebuilding trust. But part of Trump's talent is to be able to shrink horizons to the thing that he wants to be talking about this particular week. And so it's very, very difficult to see ahead and have a broader view when he's starting a war every other week. It has been encouraging, I think, to see more and more European countries internalize this lesson that there is a better way than hegemony, relying on someone else for our defense and farming our foreign policy effectively to a different country, because you just don't know who that country is going to elect next. And so I think the more European nations internalize that lesson and proceed with forging a multipolar European defense, the better.
Quiet, riot.
Let's turn our gaze back to Europe, where despite Trump's attempts to break absolutely everything, political life continues as normal. Normal, did I say? Well, there are a couple of elections coming up which are anything but normal and which showcase two very different sides of politics in Europe. One might be described as having elements of the hyper-global, the other, well, of the hyper-local. Hungary is the first of these elections. It goes to the polls on April the 12th, with Prime Minister Viktor Orbán going for his sixth term in charge. Orbán is, well, let's call it the noteworthy position he's in of being backed by both the Kremlin and the White House. Let's listen to what Trump said about him recently.
I want to send my best wishes to Prime Minister Viktor Orbán, who I am endorsing, as you know. I am endorsing his election, which is coming up pretty soon. He has my complete and total endorsement, as a matter of fact. The Prime Minister has been a strong leader who's shown the entire world what's possible when you defend your borders, your culture, your heritage, your sovereignty, and your values. He's a fantastic guy, and it's such an honor to endorse him. I endorsed him last time he won, and he did a fantastic job.
Meanwhile, Danes will vote on Tuesday in a snap poll described by some as the Hobbit election, with hot topics including wolves and extreme pig breeding. I say, what gives? What gives? Alex, Viktor Orbán has long been kind of the Hungarian spanner in the EU's relatively liberal works. What do you think his chances are of winning a sixth time?
I mean, look, I am jaded because Orbán, in my view, has taken every page out of the Erdogan playbook. You can follow step by step his exercising control over the media environment, the academic sphere, civic life. You really have seen him follow step by step Erdogan's playbook. And there have been too many elections in Turkey where Erdogan looks as if he's going to lose. And then at the last moment, he wins by hook or by crook. And so I don't want to write Viktor Orban off on the basis of him being behind in the polls. It is true to say that he's never been behind in the polls as long and as consistently as this, and by as much of a gap as this. And so there is some movement. There is some churn happening in Hungarian civic society. There is fatigue with Orban's brand of politics. And that has to be a good and positive thing.
Yeah.
But whether it takes one election to undo him or three, I genuinely don't know. He's got such a grip on every aspect of the Hungarian political system, including gerrymandering of a kind that actually makes it difficult for an opponent to win. What is notable, I think, in Hungary is the phenomenon we've seen in practically every single country where the far right has either been in control or has threatened to take control, that eventually the people who emerge as the challengers are also right-wing.
That's right.
It is never the left that benefits from this. It is always a right-wing party that can offer a sort of version of the tough on crime, hard on security, nationalism that the far right offers, but also consolidate the vote behind them of people who maybe consider themselves progressive. But after 20 years, they just want Orban out.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
We've seen this in country after country, that eventually it comes down to a choice between centre-right and far-right.
I mean, across Europe, given Hungary's size, Orban punches way, way above his weight. He always has done. I mean, Hungary accounts for just 1.1% of Europe's GDP, and it's only 2% of its population. But Orban's assault on the rule of law, his rejection of rights and values that are enshrined in EU treaties, and his pretty relentless opposition to EU foreign policy have caused the bloc a vastly disproportionate number of headaches. How happy would Brussels be if he failed?
I'm sure black candles are burning and voodoo dolls of Viktor Orban are in high demand around Brussels. But first of all, the European Union is constructed in a way that means smaller countries do punch above the weight. And that is part of the fairness in its systemic conception, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, why would Belgium or Austria or Malta or Cyprus ever join if they would just be bullied on every matter by the three big players? It just wouldn't work in that way. And so it's built into the system that the smaller voices cannot be lost and cannot be bullied on certain topics, or they can be outvoted on others. But the other thing is that the notion that the EU would be better off without Hungary in it is very attractive, and it's one that I also occasionally fantasize. But
Yeah.
What does that gap get filled with? If we end up with Hungary in the embrace of Putin, does that not make it a hugely outsized problem compared to its GDP and its population size? I would argue even more so.
Yeah.
And so there's always been this notion that it's better to have these people basically inside the tent, because that way you can keep them on the path to Europeanization. Whether that works or not in the current environment, I don't know, because we are seeing a trend. The first generation of far-right parties, they were all about leaving the European Union. Post-Brexit, and after seeing what a disaster that was, there is a second generation of far-right parties that include Orban's Fidesz and include Giorgia Meloni's party, which benefit hugely from the EU in financial terms. And they know that leaving the EU or even suggesting it would be political suicide. So instead, they stay in the EU and they subvert its social agenda. They subvert its agenda with regard to climate change. They extract as much money as they can from it. They obstruct it in any programs that have to do with the arts or, so they pursue their far-right agenda inside the EU. And there is even a school of thought that believes if those far-right parties ever become the center of gravity in the EU, they would face a real problem. Basically, the centrifugal force would be trying to get this union to break up if all of the parties in it were hostile. And yet, their financial interest is to keep it together. So the political theorists on that side of the debate say that if that happened, you would start to see far-right parties basically peel off.
Yeah, because they like the money as well.
Yeah, because they like the money.
Quiet riot. Instagram teen accounts have automatic protections for what teens see and who can contact them, plus time management tools. And Instagram will continue adding built-in safety features to help create age-appropriate experiences. Learn more about teen accounts and Instagram's ongoing work to protect teens online at instagram.com/teen accounts.
Quiet riot.
That's the sort of philosophical side of what's going on. We like data and evidence on this show a lot. Have you seen any polls that give us any sort of genuine insight into what might happen?
There's loads of polls, but polling is not tightly regulated in Hungary, and there are conservative, regime-friendly newspapers out there saying that Orbán is 10 points ahead. And then there are outlets friendly to Peter Magyar, the challenger of the TIZA party, Respect and Freedom Party, it's called, that put him 10 points ahead. Looking at the average, there is a consistent advantage for the challenger, the TIZA party, but it has loads of weaknesses. As we discussed, they would probably need to win much bigger than Orbán would need to in order to dislodge him from power. The second big problem is that really TIZA are a one-man vehicle. Yeah. It's all about Peter Magyar, who started actually
familiar as well.
In Fidesz. He started working many years ago for Orbán. He was in the Fidesz office and then peeled away, accusing the party of having betrayed the Hungarian people, and has sculpted himself a much more moderate brand of conservatism. Yeah. But we won't know really until the day, because we don't know what level interference Orbán will run. We are seeing huge amount of Russian operators being sent to Hungary, exactly as happened with Moldova in 2025. Only this time, they have the support of the sitting government. So it's a very, very different situation. We are seeing uncontrolled AI videos and things like that going out into the campaign. We don't know what effect that will have. And there is loads of talk of a sex tape that will emerge at some point.
At last!
Well, and if it's an AI-generated sex tape and it emerges 2 days before the election, by the time it's proved, it will be too late to do anything about it. So watch out for that.
Six-finger sex tape king.
And as I said, because TIZA is a one-man band, really, that's its vulnerability, that if they manage to discredit Peter Magyar at any point and eat away a few points of his lead, so that the lead is 5 points instead of 10 points, well, 5 points is actually not enough to dislodge Orbán because of the gerrymandering that's gone on in the background over all these years. So my hope is that Orbán loses. My suspicion is that Orbán will hold on by hook or by crook, because that's what people like Orbán do. So we shall see. The election is very, very close. We know that Orbán will be weakened. We know that the election is hard for a non-incumbent to win, but what will happen, we won't know until the result.
Okay.
You've been looking at Denmark, right? So, we've got dictators on one side. I know what you were saying, that there are some very, very local issues in the Danish election, but weirdly, the election was called early because of MAGA stuff, because the Prime Minister, Mette Frederiksen, had experienced the poll bounce because of all the Greenland stuff and because she stood up to Trump.
Yeah.
And so she thought, because her share had been declining for a while, and so she thought, might as well go for it. So what is the prediction? What are the polls showing in that one?
Long story short, the Social Democrats look to be heading for the worst parliamentary result since 1903. So it's a kicking with, about 22% of the vote. There's a whole wheen of other parties just under the 20%. So it's all to play for in many ways. But however it plays out, it does look like Mette Frederiksen is going to have a very, very difficult night at the polls, having gone into this, as you say, probably hoping to get some sort of bounce out of what was going on in Greenland. And they've got a problem that is going to sound familiar to some observers of politics in this country as well, in that, until recently, they were one of the last really dominant people's parties, you might call them, of the European centre left. But of late, they've been bleeding support to the left and bleeding support to the right in those parts of Denmark that used to be their heartlands. The way this election has panned out, and it's been a very quick electoral process, and you would think, given everything that's been happening, that Trump's threats to annex Greenland would be a bit of a hot potato, really. This week we were told that the Danish military had secretly stocked the island with blood bags for transfusions and explosives for blowing up airport runways and other infrastructure, just in case the Americans invaded. Yeah. And it's not over. There's been a fresh surge in foreign political interference on Greenland itself. And I was reading that 3 of the territory's parliamentary candidates have had outages on Facebook. And that's the islanders' principal news source, we should remember. But Greenland itself is actually fairly peripheral to what's going on in Denmark right now, all things considered. Things that are driving voters in Denmark aren't the geopolitical elements. It's almost as if the big problems of the world are just too big for everybody to get their heads around. And I can sympathize with that. From my newspaper days, I know that at some point in a big story, the figures and the implications become so huge that it is very difficult to get your head around them simply for headline purposes. Yeah. And you'll see that. That's why war stories will follow a cycle. Wars declared, there's been bombs, lots of people have been killed, lots more people have been killed, lots more people have been killed. And all of a sudden you start to see stories about this one person was killed, this one child was injured. And it comes back down to a level that people can get their heads around. And I think we're seeing elements of that in Denmark. The Greenland topic has been peripheral in the campaign. Instead of that, Frederiksen and her main challengers from the centre-right, they've spent a great deal of their airtime really sort of bickering about what we might consider comparative trivia. Who is to blame for abolishing a bank holiday? Why was a report into some suspicious drone activity last autumn delayed? Can the leader of a libertarian party be forgiven for taking a bit of toot now and again? Now, these are all part and parcel of the day-to-day mischievous of politics, but the party leaders' TV debates have focused on things like extreme pig breeding and the management of wolves, not the football team, because that's a much bigger topic than Greenland right now.
A massive punch of the debate.
Denmark, you're getting relegated, I'm sorry. There was one Danish expert I saw in the Times that I liked this. They said, in Denmark, we're the hobbits. We live in the Shire, and it's all about local issues in the face of what's going on in the world. And it turns out that everyone is struggling to plug into the madness of the wider world.
But, is there a sense also, Kenny, that might actually be quite a practical position to take, in that they are voting on the things that are actually in the control of their own government, rather than on massive global waves? And the same thing might be happening on the politician side. If they start debating their position on Greenland as a hot topic in the election, well, that is a call to create a difference of position, right? So maybe they don't touch that because they are being quite mature about it, and they know there's only one position to hold on Greenland. We all agree on it. Therefore, let's not expose that topic to the sort of debate that we're seeing in the comments from Kenny Badenoch.
Yeah.
So maybe, I don't know, maybe there's some wisdom in that.
Look, I completely agree with the idea that at least it appears to be a much wiser approach. Debate things that actually you have control over, and debate the things that impact your day-to-day life.
And on which you genuinely disagree.
Yeah, absolutely.
Rather than creating disagreement just for the sake of it.
That's right. There's also something else that's worth flagging up. These issues, which we gently mock as being little issues, but what these issues do is they make the election relevant and close to voters, brings proximity. Proximity is so important. And when the world of politics is dominated by an orangutan with an army in America breaking everything in the world, relevance and proximity go out the window, don't they? And I think that's why these tiny issues are big news. It's kind of as if a British general election was being fought on something like the battle to stop intensive chicken farming polluting the River Wye. There are a lot of people who go, actually, that speaks to a much wider set of issues. Zach Polanski certainly would say that. And there's a big part of me that thinks that actually that would be a huge improvement on what we're actually doing right now to fight elections out.
Yeah. I'll ask you, same as you asked me, what do you think is the most likely result here we're looking at?
We're looking at a kicking for Frederiksen. There's no way around it. There's a sea change in politics happening everywhere in many ways, and Denmark is doing it in its own very Danish way. I think she's going to be very disappointed that she didn't get the bounce on the back of that Greenland debacle that she was expecting. And it's going to be a huge shock to Denmark. In over a century, they're not likely to have seen a result like this. And it's going to be viewed as a bit of a blow to left-leaning politicians elsewhere as well.
But she was in coalition with the centre-right and the centre parties. So do we think that broadly the right of politics can gather enough votes to form its own coalition? Or are we simply talking about a different flavour of coalition with still Frederiksen, or certainly her party at the helms? If it's a terrible result, she might step down.
And I think that's the point. And it's hard for her to avoid responsibility for this. When you call a snap election, you have a historical beating, and you're in a political setup that demands that you have to form coalitions. That's how they work. And it's really hard to see a route out of this that doesn't leave her mortally wounded. And if you take Frederiksen out of the equation, then the question will arise, who replaces her? What changes will they bring? And how will that change the flavour, even if it's only subtly, of the politics over there? If I was Frederiksen, I would probably be contacting my book publishers to get my autobiography sorted and setting up one or two nice directorships. She's a very talented operator. She's not going to disappear from the political stage completely. There's no way that's going to happen. But I imagine that she is going to have to retire, if only just to lick her wounds.
Quiet Riot.
This episode is brought to you by Cologuard. Do you know what's really scary? Not screening for colon cancer when you turn 45. The Cologuard test is non-invasive, requires no special prep or time off work, and ships right to your door. In just 3 simple steps, Cologuard takes the scare out of colon cancer screening. If you're 45 or older and at average risk, ask your healthcare provider about the Cologuard test. Cologuard is available by prescription only. Learn more or request a prescription today at Cologuard.com/screen.
Quiet Riot.
Cameo is a platform on which punters can pay a celebrity to read out personalised messages for them. Videos cost between 70 and 100 quid. Nigel Farage has made upwards of £370,000 from recording such messages. Sadly, however, he has had to suspend his Cameo account this week for security reasons, or so the Reform UK spokesperson tells us. This comes after a Guardian investigation in which Farage was revealed to have said various unsavoury things. This is how Farage initially responded to the investigation.
After the revelations in The Guardian, are you going to continue making Cameo videos?
I would decline to comment on that. I don't approve of things being published in national newspapers that have been illegally obtained.
You haven't made a decision though yet. You might still continue with Cameo videos.
Things that have been illegally obtained.
Do you have any regrets about what you've said on any of the Cameo videos?
This is just ludicrous. This argument is ludicrous. If I have a shoe shop and I sell you a pair of shoes, and it turns out the person that bought the pair of shoes is a former convicted murderer, is that the fault of the person selling shoes?
Quite the turnaround from a man who, according to The Spectator, told the Reform Press Office to respond to any request for comment from The Guardian with, "Go fuck yourselves."
That's right.
Then again, looking at the rest of Farage's declarations in Parliament, hundreds of thousands of pounds as a spokesperson for gold bullion and over £1 million a year from GB News, you can see why he might feel vulnerable if talking shit for money were to become an issue.
I'm putting that in a T-shirt.
So, Kenny, what were the sort of things that The Guardian uncovered? Like, how bad was this?
Look, I mean, he was repeating mottos associated with the far right. He was referencing anti-Semitic conspiracy theories. He was making...
Was this on Cameo or more generally?
Oh, this was very definitely the Cameo. He made a comment about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's breasts, all for the money. The one that is worth highlighting, I think, was that Farage was paid 141 quid for a video in which he promoted an event by a Canadian neo-Nazi group. That used the clip in propaganda alongside fascist salutes and anti-Semitic imagery. Farage, a little bit unfortunately, called the event, and I quote, the best thing that ever happened. The video, well, it was removed from Cameo's website after the Guardian story. A spokesperson for him said that with thousands of videos recorded, the occasional mistake can occur.
Absolutely rotten. All I can say is keep your head up, keep believing in the right things, keep acting in the right way. You never know, you might walk out saying road rage terror tour is the best thing that ever happened. Now, remember, if in doubt, kick 'em out. If in doubt, keep 'em out is a motto you believe in. You're simpering for Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez's big naturals. Doing what you do, for fuck's sake, you
I mean, which of us hasn't accidentally charged someone £141 for creating a video supporting Canadian neo-Nazi groups, eh?
I haven't. Let's take a straw poll. Let's take a straw poll. I haven't. Have you?
No, but it's given me some cracking
100%
ideas.
no.
Has anyone actually tried to defend this, Alex?
They have, believe it or not.
Of course they have. Of course they have. Who?
Douglas Murray wrote a hilarious piece in The Spectator. Actually, I will read you from it.
Oh, joy.
So Douglas Murray writes, in general, Nigel Farage seems to me to be a man of pretty sound judgment on this occasion. His good
got me already.
His good judgment appears to have lapsed.
Pretty doing a lot of lifting there.
And I quote, when he was out of the front line of British politics, Farage did indeed sign up to do personalised video for Cameo. But now the Guardian newspaper has tried to use this interregnum in Farage's career to do a number on him.
What, they've reported it?
There's one big problem with this, okay? The last time Farage posted a video for pay on Cameo was Wednesday. Like he's declared almost 200 grand since he's been an MP and leader for reform. So this notion that Douglas Murray is somehow trying to engineer that this was during his youth when he needed the money is not really cutting it.
It's not the most difficult bit of research for Douglas Murray to have done, is it? It really isn't.
I think Nigel Farage's defense initially was also hilarious because he said, if I ran a shoe shop...
What?
If I ran a shoe shop and I sold someone some shoes that then happened to become a serial killer, would you... Yeah.
I had that shoe bomber in my shop the other day. Bought 3 sets of Adidas Gazelles.
Yes.
Nothing to say here,
Is it my fault if I sell shoes with little bomb compartments on them? Anyway.
Is it a real problem, Alex? I mean, he says much worse every day in press conference, one might say, and news channels. And, what was the peril here?
Yeah, so it is a problem. And I'll tell you why. Because it really brings home how cheap he is. Mm. When he's being paid more than £1 million a year by GB News to do his program and collecting a salary as an MP and making loads of money on the dinner circuit and, getting loads of funding through his party, he's still going around doing fucking birthday videos for 70 quid. And I think that is what the peril is here, that the electorate look at him and think he's not making that transition into someone that understands the gravity of his position. He's still trying to make 70 quid from any side source he can.
I think we should note that what he is doing is following the Trump model in trying to use his position to enrich himself. But Trump makes $1.5 billion.
And then the other hypocrisy, I guess, is that you may remember the whole debate about the bakery that didn't want to bake a cake for people who had a gay wedding or a gay anniversary. I don't remember what it was, a gay couple basically, and they didn't want to write a message on there. And all those people, including Farage, including Douglas Murray, came out to say that it's up to them because they're the ones that will have to write the message on the cake. So if their conscience and their religious belief intervenes and says they can't do that, they should be allowed to do that. So in one case, the bearer of the message, as it were, has moral agency for it. And in another case, they come out and say, me just read what script say for £70. I know the Canadian neo-Nazi group.
Case closed.
So you can't maintain both positions at the same time, right? You can't have no agency over what comes out of your mouth on the basis that I didn't look into it because I was paid 70 quid to say those words. It doesn't work like that. But it does give me occasion to ask you, what's the weirdest thing you've ever done for money?
Oh, shit. I mean, in my career, there's, directly for money. Actually, the weirdest thing, this isn't going to sound too weird, but it involved so much weirdness. The weirdest thing was when I was asked to launch the Metro newspaper in Scotland, and I was given less than a week to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So I got called over with my editor. We'd launched Metro in London, one of other places. Me and my editor got called over to Paul Dacre's office. He was our boss. And we got sat down in his office and they said, right, we think we should launch in Scotland and we think you're the man to do it. And I go, all right, okay, well, I've never launched a newspaper. That's good. Well, it's Wednesday now. It's Thursday now. Could you have it ready on the streets by Wednesday next week? And I kind of looked at him. I said, do we have a print contract? No print contract. Have we got any distribution? No. Have we got an office? Well, there's nothing. And I kind of paused and thought, yeah, this is a career-threatening moment, isn't it? And I said very quietly and sheepishly, I don't suppose I could have 2 weeks. And he glowered at me and said, well, 2 weeks, I suppose, but be ready in a week. So what happened was I then got sent back to our offices in Rotherhithe in South London to produce the next day's paper. I had to go straight back to work, book a flight to Glasgow from City Airport the next morning, in which I sat with my face up against the window of this little plane out of City Airport. And all the way up, I was muttering under my breath, fuck up, this is a fuck up. Fuck up, this is a fuck up. It was all to be done in top secret, because the moment that anybody finds out you're launching a newspaper, other newspapers are going to go for your neck. So I'm trying to put a team together in secret. I fly to Glasgow Airport. I get off the plane, get my bag. The first person I bump into is an old colleague that I'd worked with multiple times.
What are you doing here?
What are you doing here? Are you coming to launch Metro? And I'm thinking, Jesus. I said, no, I'm here to see an old girlfriend. Do you know her? Blah, 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 blah. In the next few days, I got threatened with physical violence by a guy working in the office upstairs from our new office. The fellow who they put in to help us put our kit together told us that, yes, we could have the 12 computers that I'd asked for, but I could only have 6 desks because the budgets wouldn't stretch to 12 desks. At which point I asked them to do 2 things. 1, let me know what the damage to computers from dust on the carpets is. And 2, give me the address of the nearest B&Q because I'm going to go buy desks.
Brilliant.
The hotel that we stayed in with the team, it had a residence lounge that had decanters of whiskey, gin, and vodka that got refilled if you rang a little bell. I mean, literally endless supplies of spirits. And then finally, we managed it. You know, there was an amazing team. We had it ready to go a day early. And Lord Rothermere, the chairman, decided on the day that we hit the streets that he was going to make a surprise visit. And we were all a bit sort of rattled and addled at this stage.
And drunk.
And really very hungover. I mean, there was a lot of alcohol, but there was very little sleep. And I realized that I looked a bit like a tramp, even more so than normal. And so I rushed out to get some disposable razors so I could at least shave my face before the chairman steps off. And that didn't go well. That didn't go well at all. So when the chairman turned up, I looked like I'd been in a fight in a Glasgow branch of Supertruck and lost embarrassingly badly. There's blood everywhere. The collar of my shirt was covered in blood. Oh, it was weird. And that's only just the vaguest hint of how weird it was. Strange times. I always hesitate to ask this, Alex, but what's the strangest thing you've done for money?
Why would you hesitate to ask me?
Yeah, bitter experience, Alex. Bitter experience.
Well,
That's why.
I can tell you, I've never done anything as disgusting as work for Paul Dacre.
I bet you have, big boy.
I have not. I mean, as an actor, I've had to play some unsavory characters, but I guess that you're not being yourself, you're being someone else. So I don't know if
Well, that's like working for Paul Dacre.
The weirdest moment of my career was when I was sent to an audition that I was quite dubious about, because it was to make corporate videos for a big oil company that I shan't name.
Oh,
and that they were going to distribute to their executives around the world, that would train them on how to avoid being done for bribery under new bribery laws.
That's a public service film and a half.
Without actually stopping the bribery. It was obviously a very well-paid corporate gig, and I needed the money. The brief was that it has to be a Middle Eastern accent, so I'd learned the script and prepared it all in that accent, etc., etc. And then I get to the audition and I sit down and the casting director is going to read with me. And just as we both take a breath to start reading, she stops and says, "You did get the update to the brief, right? That we're now making this a South American character." A South American character, because they decided they didn't want to offend, so they decided to go for a nondescript Latin American person.
So you have to go full Sergio Leone on them.
Bribe, and I don't know what possessed me, Kenny. Instead of fronting up and saying, "No, I've prepared," I said, yes, of course.
See?
And what came out of my mouth for the next 10 minutes? I mean, me and the casting director had tears running down our face. It was like Speedy Gonzalez trying to play Osama bin Laden. You've never heard anything funnier in your entire life.
Did you get the gig?
I did.
Oh, there you go.
I did.
A bit of honesty and a bit of laughter makes the
I
world
did
go
get the
round.
gig. They never made the videos though, so I got the gig and it was pay for play. So they basically paid to block the time on your diary, but then they never actually made the corporate videos, so you didn't get further payment.
And I'm guessing that they didn't give you an MP3 back then of your audition.
You know, I think it was filmed. So I think there's probably video footage somewhere of me doing the funniest accent you have ever heard in your entire life. Anyway, so this brings us to the end of another jam-packed, delicious donut of a Sunday school. And thank you as ever for making space for us in your head and inside your weekend.
And as ever, if you enjoyed today's show and you want to show some appreciation, please pop over to ko-fi.com/QuietRiotPod and bung us the price of some sausage rolls, coffee, and a 4-pack of donuts at Greg's, which will come to about £5, I reckon. Subscribers, as Alex said at the top of the show, will get an invite to our next Ask Us Anything on the 29th of this very month, which is their chance to ask Alex, Naomi, and myself literally anything.
Naomi is back on Monday with a lovely Will Haywood and another special Wales episode. And we are all back on Thursday with the main Quiet Riot event of the week. What will happen by then? Who knows?
Until then, we love you lots.
Bye.
Quiet Riot is an audio production by Cooler Heads with Naomi Smith and Alex Andreou. Produced by Kenny Campbell. Music by Mariana Sangeeta. Artwork by Simona Canelu. And edited by me, Alex Reese.
Quiet Riot.